This one is going to be Youth Voices in Conversation with Isabelle Rome. So please wait just a couple of minutes while we get everything ready. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. What much-deserved winners. It's incredible what they've come up with, and it's very exciting to see what will happen next year as well. And hopefully you'll be still part of the Women's Forum family. Who's going to be still part of the family? Yes? I've got some takers. So, some lovely ladies here in the front row. So I think we're ready. And it gives me great pleasure now to welcome on stage Isabelle Rome, French Minister in charge of gender equality, diversity, and equal opportunities, and 2 Women's Forum Youth Voices ambassadors. Please welcome Inès, Boufrayoua, Finance and Strategy Student Science Po, and Maria-Sophie Muratore, Consultant Impact Hub for the session, Youth Voices in Conversation. Wonderful, thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic. So, I'm going to first ask the Minister to share her strategy towards gender equality in France. And if you would like to go to the podium or stay here, whatever is easier for you. Yes, it's good. Wonderful, thank you so much.
Bonsoir.
Good evening. Good evening to each and every one of you. I am delighted to conclude this very busy day and to answer the questions of Inès and Sofia. I am the Deputy Minister to the Prime Minister in charge of equality, diversity and equality of opportunities. For 30 years I have been a judge, and for the past 6 months I've been a minister. So I've been committed for a long time in fighting against the violence against women. I have chaired many trials and legal proceedings in the highest legal instances in France. I have heard from many victims, and I want to dedicate my fight, my struggle to each and every one of them. This is the very reason why I am here, thanks to them. But we have seen that equality, gender equality does not boil down only to the fight for gender equality. We need to promote gender equality from a professional, economic standpoint and women empowerment. There is no women freedom without economic empowerment, and the government and the French President of the Republic are working on this intensively. Emmanuel Macron made gender equality a priority for his mandate for the second time. In January, the Prime Minister will bring together an interministerial committee to bring together all ministers around the table to draft a government-wide plan for the next few years to promote gender equality. This will be the first time that we will have a plan to promote equality between men and women. First, we will fight against violence against women. Second, we will look at professional and economic equality. Third, healthcare for women. And fourth, equality culture. So this is a major program, and I will be more than happy to set it out for you next year. In the meantime, thank you very much for being here, and now I'm going to answer your questions. So thank you to each and every one of you.
Merci beaucoup, Minister. Thank you so much. So before we hear from the minister again, I'd like to ask both of you, Inès and Maria Sofia, for your reaction. Please share your priorities around gender equality within health, climate, and the peace sector.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation, Madam the Minister. Before sharing our priorities, I really wanted to highlight how symbolic it is to sit here during the Women's Forum in a place at Palais Brongniart where women were forbidden to enter until 1967. So I'm very proud now to hear that. As regards our priorities, the first one I would like to highlight is to give a space for youth to talk. We are here, we are at a safe place here, and we are very lucky to be able to get insight, to exchange. But indeed, not all young girls and boys have this chance. Not every parent talks about politics, and these are topics that are very critical since the early age. So that's a first priority, I would say, is like listen to the youth and create safe space to exchange. The second one, it's more about health, and it's about mental health. With everything we went through with COVID, with also climate anxiety, in 10 countries, in 10 European countries, 60% of 10,000 young people question mentioned this climate anxiety that we have. So we need more support also about it. And this last one is about confidence building. For example, and I will share an anecdote. When I was invited to speak, my first reaction was to think, oh my God, I'm not legitimate. Why? Who am I to represent the youth? But indeed, I was wrong. I don't need legitimation, I don't need experience. As long as I have a voice, as long as I can think, I am enough. And I want all young ladies to think this. And for example, thank you.
Bravo.
And I will finish with that, because if today it's a barrier to maybe if I want to build a business, maybe one day I will say, oh, I'm not skilled enough, I need more experience. No, just we need to go. And that is why one of the recommendations will be to create more soft skills and leadership environments so that we can build this confidence.
Wonderful, thank you so much. It should be on, try?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for staying here. Thank you, Minister, for your plan and your strategy. Following the train of thought of Inés, we consider that the other priority that we have to think when we consider exactly a valuable strategy, equity strategy, is sexual education. But not sexual education only to prevent pregnancies, also sexual education for how to create a specific strategy to not consider a taboo the women's body, and for this to diminish the case of menstrual poverty that nowadays we have in emergency countries. For example, I'm from Argentina, Latin America, so I know that this is something we have a tax in this topic, so we have to think about a strategy also related to this. At the same time, and continue with period poverty, we not only have to think a tax, we have to think sustainable solution. Sustainable solution, why? Because it's the only way to think about a strategy in climate. And for this, it's so important because women are most vulnerable in climate. Climate justice, it was one of the panel of this forum. And women also, it was a solution to attack climate change. Women work a lot with natural resources and could diminish the dioxide carbon reduces, and also work in all related to food security. But the problem is that women haven't got a technical skill to do it, so we have to invest. This is our other priority that we want to sign up.
Thank you so much for that. Well done. Madam Minister, if I can ask you now to please react to what you've heard from Inès and Maria Sofia and to present your priorities in this area. Merci.
Merci à toutes les deux pour
Thank you very much to both of you for raising these questions. They are part of our priorities. Thank you very much, Inès, for saying that it is important to make sure that young people can have their voices heard, as it is the case today in this place. Young people need to express themselves so that they can participate in our democracies. In France, you can vote from the age of 18, but it doesn't always go hand in hand with the right of expressing ourselves. It is important to start right from an early age to encourage children to speak up. It is important for our republic. And this is also the reason why we created a youth parliament in France. So young people who take part in this parliament meet and they come to the parliament of our republic to take part in our proceedings. I think that this is a wonderful initiative, and I believe that this kind of initiative could be replicated at various levels. I also heard what you said, and you made me smile, by the way, when you said that you didn't feel legitimate, that you didn't think that you were legitimate in speaking up here, that you wondered whether you would be enough. And you made me smile in a way, because this is what we see in so many women. Many women think, am I going to be enough? Am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be skilled enough? And this is something that we need to work on, to make sure that women are more self-confident, that they believe in themselves. Women need to have access to mentorship and women networks and so on. So it is very important to work on these pillars. And this is exactly what I set out to do, and this is what I aim to do when I meet with women networks. Let me tell you an anecdote as well on this topic. I've organized many seminars and conferences, and when I was looking for speakers, I would call men and women equally. And when I called women, systematically women would say, "Are you sure? Am I the right person for this?" And when I used to call a man, there was never any problem. Of course, he was competent, he was skilled enough. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but this is the truth. So we need to be more daring, to have courage. We need to make sure that we believe that we represent more than half of humanity, and we have more than half of the skills of humanity. So this is what I wanted to say.
And as for mental health, indeed, mental health and mental overload, the risk of burnout is much stronger for women than men. 42% of women risk going through some burnout, whereas only 35% of men face that risk. And this is also this can be solved through household work sharing, but it's also about a different approach to human resources in companies, so that the balance between private and professional life be better, with, for instance, a better sharing out of time between private time and time spent at work. Now, as for the bodies, we have less taboos now for periods, for instance. It's no longer a taboo. A program has been set up to face the problems of women with special machines where you can get protections, but this is also about reproductive rights. We have to protect especially women because they can be threatened, and I am delighted that the Parliament adopted a draft law that will make it possible to constitutionalize the right to resort to abortion in French law. We have to protect it and make sure it is locked so that it is protected against the rise of extremism. It's important for women to have this fundamental right, and it's also important for France, which is the country of human rights, to be the country of women's rights.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'd now like to ask Inès and Maria Sofia the actions that you would like to see implemented for a more inclusive future.
Yes, thank you so much for your insights. One element I would like to suggest is an intergenerational coalition and put the community at the center, because it's not men against women, it's not Gen Z against boomers. And we need to, for example, when we talk about climate change, we often say, youth generation, you are the future, you're gonna make things change. Yes, but this also puts us a kind of pressure, and we need to work together for it. And for more concrete recommendation as regard the points who were mentioned, I would say to insist on a soft skills program since the childhood and high school. And yeah, maybe I can let Sofia continue.
Well, I consider that it's so important. Yesterday, for example, they talked about financial and how financial could help to solution this problem. Impact investment in gender perspective is so important, but if it's not related with education and a systemic education, it couldn't be useful. So we have to think both tools together. They have to be tools. They not only have to be money and not only have to be programs. We have to work with all these topics and always thinking how to empower communities, not only person. We have to empower communities and think how to co-create with different actors, public sector, third sector, and also citizenship and private sector, of course, to do and to solve and find solution, exactly, systemic solution. So, well, this is our recommendation.
Thank you so much. And now, for the final remarks from Madam Minister, thank you so much, your reaction to the girls, and to present the actions to be implemented in France.
Well, I'd like to get back to education to sexuality. I didn't react at the time, but this makes it possible for me to say what we're going to do and what we decided to undertake together with the Minister for Education, Papandiaï, because he decided to implement a law that hadn't been implemented, even though it dates back to 2001, which requires from national education, from the national education system, to educate to sexuality and devote 3 hours per year at each level at school. This is part of the project that he launched, and I'm supporting this project because there is what can be done at school, and there is all that can complement this, either through interventions from associations, that is at school, in addition to what the teachers can teach, but also in other places, for instance, in leisure spaces or other entities. It's important to try and fuel this education to sexuality. which is also about equality, equity, respecting others, and it's also about learning what consent is about, explaining clearly what consent is about. Working with companies, bringing closer together the corporate world and the public authorities. It's one of my ambitions, and from the November the 25th onwards, I launched a partnership between associations which support violence victims, together with companies that committed themselves to providing emergency accommodation, Airbnb, the Federation for Hotels, but this can be also about professional inclusion with La Poste, with other companies. It is work that I want to go on doing. This is of concern to everybody. This involves all of us. Gender equality is not just an issue for women. It's not just the struggle of feminists, even though it should remain so. This is a stake for the whole society, and it has to bring us together, men and women. And I'd like to get back to the intergenerational aspect. We have to be able to prepare a better society for our children. What type of society do we want to hand over to them? A more peaceful one. And that's why in France, we always bring together gender issues, climate issues, protection of the environment, because we think that these two aspects are related. And when we work at protecting gender equity, protecting the planet, we're taking the right direction.
Madam Minister, thank you so much to the girls, to Inès, to Maria Sofia. Congratulations to both of you. And Minister Isabelle Rome, thank you so much for being with us here at the forum today for this very, very crucial discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.